Now, this is the front page of Wednesday's Rupert Murdoch Daily's Scum. Wednesday, 3rd of March, 2021. 3rd of March in the UK was the day that the Forbes so-called budget was due to be announced, and it has been announced. And there are the questions the leader of the opposition, so-called, Keir Starmer, put to Boris Johnson during the corrupt Prime Minister's question time included a rare reference to the people of Yemen and the UK government's kind of bias against helping people like the Yemenis, and the UK government's collusion with regimes like the Saudis. Obviously, this is a paraphrase that I'm making based on the kind of strictly factual kind of references that Keir Starmer read out. Apart from that, there are other very serious issues affecting millions, hundreds of millions of people's lives, livelihoods, safety, security. And the morass, the general morass that exists in the UK about democracy, there is no accountability about most of the decisions made by people in the local councils and in local government departments and in central government departments and regional platforms like the Mayor of London or Mayor at the expense of London. There is contamination, there is pollution, environmental threat, there is serious waste of billions of pounds for big business contractors under the cover of High Speed 2. None of that is important. It is the racist narrative of hatred against Meghan Markle, a black woman or a woman of mixed race identity and descent. And they're now desperate for any excuse or pretext that they can use to malign Meghan Markle. Literally days before the Oprah Winfrey interview is due to go on air. And they're doing everything to discredit Meghan Markle and to undermine any claim that Harry might have as a member of that family. Because they're desperate, because the estimated audience worldwide that will watch Oprah Winfrey's much flaunted, much trailed interview with the couple will constitute a serious evidence, a serious milestone in the continuing fragmentation of the myths of the royal family. There is no doubt that they are leading the racist brigade in Fleet Street in maligning Meghan Markle and Harry. And this is absolutely unconditional abuse and racism and hatred. And when the royal family is at the lead in spreading hatred and hate-filled insinuations and lies against the couple, all the other races in this country are absolutely gleeful that such an achievement has been made that racism is now the main agenda being fronted by Brenda, also known as Queen Elizabeth II. So this is the reason why we are referring to this paper of yesterday. In part A, this is part A of the Khoodeelaar campaign, World Exclusive Diagnosis of Fleet Street. This is the Financial Times celebrating Rishi Sunak, the finance minister. And what they are doing in the Daily Star, London Daily Star, the tabloid part of the Fleet Street, is continuing on the theme of having put a black blanket covering the eyes of Meghan and Harry, while Brenda's eyes are quite open. So that's the agenda that Brenda is literally being put as running and leading. The agenda of hatred against Meghan and Harry. The budget doesn't matter. The implications of the economic policies, the impact on the people in poverty doesn't matter. Nothing matters about the continuing failures about the National Health Service, the COVID-19, the virus, and of course the impact, the mounting impact, negative impact of the Brexit disaster. It is a hateful campaign ongoing with Brenda as the lead, campaign of racism. That is the most important thing, and the royal family is seen and shown, and the monarch herself is seen and shown as the leader of the racist campaign against Meghan and Harry. And then the Daily Star is continuing inside on page 7. With the same theme. And that is an assertion of fact, not allegation or alleged bullying, that Meghan and Harry have been accused of. And the Daily Mail continuing the allegation as fact that Meghan bullied staff. I mean, that is the biggest story. It's not being shown as allegation, it's being shown as fact. And even the budget is relegated. And what the Daily Mail is doing today is running how many? So page 1 is Palace proves, claims Meghan bullied staff. And then on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 8 pages. 8 pages from page 1 to page 8. Page 7. And we have got more. So page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of the Daily Mail on the day after the so-called budget that they are running. 7 pages dedicated to inciting hatred against Meghan and the husband, Harry. What they want to do is to destroy, in the eyes of the gullibles, the majority of the people predisposed to hating somebody like Meghan, to destroy their credibility altogether. And what they're saying on page 16 is that the pandemic bill has reached 407 billion pounds. And they are admitting that borrowing will hit record high in peacetime. And there are other stories about the impact of the budget on the state of people's income. And there is an admission on page 19 in the coverage of the budget that Rishi Sunak didn't announce any help for hospitals, social care, or schools. Now, these are the kind of references, factual references. And yet, in the front page and on 7 pages, the Daily Mail is showing its own contempt and its own lack of care for those people by continuing, mounting racist allegations and racistly motivated allegations against Meghan Markle. And even the kind of exchanges between the two sides, that is Nicola Sturgeon's side yesterday and Alex Salmond's evidence on Friday. Even that is very serious, because the agenda of hating the Scots generally, I'm not making a reference in defense of the SNP or any party, but generally in the British kind of mainstream based on the English centered agenda. there is hostility and there is an intolerance, and there is a contempt and there is a hatred against the Scots. And nobody is hated more by Boris Johnson or the other anti-Scots English-centric racists than any Scottish political leader who is more effective than Boris Johnson, or more effective and more capable than any English-centric counterpart. And so on that basis, which is fact-based, based on the record of Fleet Street undermining, always undermining and underestimating and attacking and targeting Nicola Sturgeon, on that basis alone, the Daily Mail should have been focusing on what has been going on between the two leaders of the SNP of the recent past, Alex Salmond as the ex-leader and Nicola Sturgeon as the current leader. And even inside the Daily Mail, they are saying the same thing that they have been saying for years, and they have been trying to find any excuse to undermine Nicola Sturgeon so that she then fails in her bid to hold the anti-Scottish, English-centric political establishment to account. And I'm advisedly not, intentionally not referring to the still looming Indy referendum, whenever that is. And so it would be consistent with their agenda of anti-Scottish hatred to have given coverage to the most explosive exchanges that have been taking place between the two sides of the Scottish leadership. And they haven't done that. They have decided to focus on Meghan Markle on a most spurious allegation. Because if Meghan Markle was bullying anyone, including the staff, then it follows that others have been bullying staff as well. But there is no sign, there is no hint that Kate Middleton, the main leader of the action against or active program against Meghan Markle, has been remotely kind of mentioned as a bully. In fact, she has been relegated to a level just one level short of Mother Teresa. Everything good that happens is traced back to Kate Middleton. She is the saint, and Meghan Markle is the sinner. And it's the Daily Mail group, Mail on Sunday, that has been ordered to pay the full legal costs that Meghan Markle incurred in the latest court action that she successfully mounted against the Mail on Sunday. So the world exclusive diagnosis of Free Street is literally there. That the Daily Mail is nakedly racist and nakedly corrupt, and there is no trace or sign of journalistic, even pretense balance and proportion. And the Boris graph is, of course, not as naked in its part and the role of the kind of royal family in mounting and continuing the attack and the vilification of Meghan Markle and Harry. So the Boris Graf is saying that Rishi Sunak, Rich Rishi, who is a hedge funder, they're saying that this budget actually represents a tax raid on business, that is to say, the right wing and the big business. And it admits on page 2 of the business section that the 35% tax burden is still low by European standards. And Liam Halligan is saying that Rishi Sunak should level with the public about jobs crisis and the QE, the economic quarter. And there are more contradictory items by the Boris Graf inside. And it's the only broadsheet. So it's a big size. You can see the screen, the television screen, too small to contain the spread broadsheet. And the substance, the essence of the contents, despite the size, the big size and the big spread, remains the same. It's the Tory conservative agenda prompted by and suited to the hedge funders and their agenda narrative. And the budget has been announced by a member of the corrupt capitalist big business minority. And the Boris Graf has got on page 3 a piece against Meghan Markle, saying that she faces a bullying investigation. What else can they do to damage the reputation of Harry and Meghan? First, the kind of leak, somebody leaked it, and then the kind of lying assertion that has been published without the use of any possible alleged content or component. So it's a fact, they're asserting it as fact. And then they're saying that the palace is likely to investigate the alleged bullying. Now take into account all the things that the palace does and has done, and Brenda herself, that is Elizabeth II, has been exposed as having persistently interfered with the various pieces of legislation and the legal agenda specifically to protect her own billions. Now, that is outrageously unconstitutional, anti-constitutional, anti-democratic, and anti the agreement, the settlement so-called, of the constitutional monarchy and its terms. These are serious allegations and serious events, and the press is not doing any covering of them. They are covering the bullying. They're bullying. Fleet Street is bullying Meghan Markle and Harry. And the two-page promotion by the likes of Madeline Grant, these are intellectual infants and morons on the Telegraph. So what gives them any qualification to comment on the implications on society and on the majority of the many of the budget that is devised, designed, and crafted by the few for the benefit of the few? And they're incandescent against any rises in tax. That is what the whole thing is full of, the old Telegraph. And they've got a picture of Robert Maxwell in a piece that is for Ghislaine Maxwell. And they're saying that the Maxwells have hit out at the treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, how can they do that? Even Ghislaine Maxwell is better. Nobody is doing that for Harry and Meghan Markle. Even Ghislaine Maxwell, the widely known Madame of Jeffrey Epstein and Brenda's son Andrew, even she deserves a kind of defense by the Boris Club. None whatsoever for Meghan Markle and Harry. So what they're doing in this second day, if you like, of the budget, the second day, the third day of the program to bully Meghan Markle, they are running brazenly, openly racist, hateful kind of items against Meghan Markle and Harry. And they're even rehabilitating the image of Ghislaine Maxwell. And they're saying that Ghislaine Maxwell's brother describes socialites' imprisonment a disgrace to any civilized democracy. Can you believe that? That's in the Boris Club. That is the statement by one of Robert Maxwell's sons. I mean, imprisonment. What they're saying is that Ghislaine Maxwell is impune and immune from any action, even if she is known to have been a criminal procurer of young white girls to be used as sex objects and effectively rapes by Epstein and his clients and his co-criminals. Looking at this picture, it would not be possible to link Maxwell with the hundreds of millions of pounds of pension robbery that he committed, let alone with and they're describing her, Ghislaine Maxwell, seen next to Robert Maxwell. I mean, she was his favorite daughter. Now, we don't want to go into too much details about that kind of thing. But suffice to say that there has been no evidence whatsoever published anywhere that we can access or we can identify showing any substance or substantive ground or justification for Robert Maxwell treating Ghislaine Maxwell as his favorite child. I mean, what was it about her that made him favor her at the expense of or to the exclusion of the other children? Now, this write-up, this thing, bring it a bit closer. That is the thing. I mean, how dare he? He's saying that the socialite, they're calling her socialite, they're not calling her the madame or the criminal who is awaiting trial. They're saying that she's a socialite and her imprisonment is a disgrace to any civilized democracy and calls for her release. Now let's read a bit more. This is in the Boris graph. And it says the family. The family of Ghislaine Maxwell have broken their silence, insisting she is innocent, while labeling the United States legal system bizarre and cruel. Of all the things that have been happening in the USA in relation to the US legal system, including the many miscarriages of justice against hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom disproportionately members of the ancient nations or the original nations, and of course of the African origin and the African background, and other people that are not connected with the occupiers of the USA. So Ian Maxwell told the Daily Telegraph his sister was being subjected to brutal and degrading treatment and called for her release from jail while awaiting trial on child sex trafficking charges. In an impassioned defense of his sister, Mr. Maxwell, 64, said, on evidence that can be shown to be false, given just a little exploration and digging, Ghislaine has been accused of being a procurer and a heartless woman, and far more besides. In fact, she is none of these things. He urged that she be freed from prison. Miss Maxwell, 59, a close friend of the Duke of York, in other words, Andrew, is languishing in a detention center in Brooklyn after being arrested by the FBI last July. She is due to go on trial later this year for the offenses relating to her association with her one-time boyfriend Jeffrey Epstein, the financier and convicted pedophile, and they're saying without any quotation marks, who killed himself in a New York jail in 2019. Now, that particular incident is still disputed. It is alleged by various sources that Epstein was killed, not committed suicide. And the killing, according to some of the, we don't have any independent source or evidence to say that, but we are just referring to what has been published and publicly said. Maxwell, that is Ghislaine Maxwell, is due to go on trial later this year for offenses relating to her association with her one-time boyfriend Jeffrey Epstein. Ms. Maxwell remains on round-the-clock suicide watch, and applications for bail, which include a 28.5 million surety and a pledge to give up both her British and French citizenships, have so far been denied. Mr. Maxwell, that is Ian Maxwell, 64, described his sister's treatment as a disgrace to any civilized democracy. He said her decision to renounce her citizenships in an attempt to persuade US authorities she is not a flight risk had caused her immense distress. Now, it's not a fantasy, it's not an allegation, it's a fact. There are several women have already publicly and repeatedly insisted that Ghislaine Maxwell was the madam. And they have suffered immeasurable distress and loss of self-confidence, self-respect, and more. There is no reference to any of that in this telegraph piece. And it is full of Ian shedding the tears of sympathy for his sister. No reference to the victims. And there is a page 14 full of the appearance before the committee or the inquiry by Nicholas Sturgeon yesterday in Edinburgh. And there is a promotion for Aung San Suu Kyi in the Telegraph, who are making her the martyr or come across as the martyr. And we say that that is a successful kind of outcome for the plot hatched by the genociders in Burma. Because the genocide of the Muslim Rohingyas has been totally sunk out of any attention or mention. Instead, the leader of the genocide, Aung San Suu Kyi, or the leader of the Burmese regime carrying out the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims, is now painted as an innocent campaigner for democracy and most probably also human rights and free speech. That is the successful coup, not the coup that they are talking about as having been mounted by the military, but the coup in international propaganda terms and the terms of narrative, changing the narrative, is the one that says that Aung San Suu Kyi is the victim of the military, which supported her and whom she supported when they carried out the massacres and the rapes and the genocidist attacks on the Rohingya Muslims. More than 1 million of them are now abroad, the majority being in Bangladesh, which is geographically the next place geographically to the Arakan or the Rakhine state, where most of the Rohingyas live and have come from. So there is no mention of the crime against humanity that Aung San Suu Kyi carried out as the leader of the genocidist regime, and also the crimes she committed subsequently by doing two more things. One was to deny that it had happened, and the second thing is that the Rohingyas were not Burmese, or the Rohingya Muslims were not Burmese. So she aggravated her liabilities and her offense and her denials and the criminality. So we have, what is the Sun saying today? The Sun is continuing the attack on Meghan Markle today. And they are digging deeper and going down. They're saying that Meghan Markle got a free frock, and that is an offense according to them. So the only way for Boris Johnson is up, and only way for Meghan Markle and Harry is down. That is the racist Rupert Murdoch scum. And there is a frocks row. And they are now saying that the royal family was invaded by Meghan Markle, who took the royal family over and mistreated the royal family. They're saying, the Sun is saying, this scum, that Meghan Markle took us for mugs. That is, she single-handedly decided to take over the royal family. That is the extent to which their madness and lunacy and stupidity is going. And it's full of anti-Meghan stuff. And the editorial is full of references to the budget. and it's absolutely full of diversions and lies and hatred and denial. And the Times actually admits it's a rare thing in the Fleet Street coverage or cover-ups. And it includes the families, ordinary people's families, We shall actually update the diagnosis on the lying use of the term or the concept of families. While the number of single persons in this country is in the millions, they ignored the millions. And that is completely irresponsible, brazen lie. And the Times actually on page 3 continues the lie that the palace is to investigate complaint of Meghan bullying after urgent talks. Now, none of these papers, including the Times, is bothering to leave any room for doubting the alleged allegation, because they're not publishing it with any quotation marks or even any qualifying alleged allegation or complaint against Meghan Markle. So they're putting the record completely wrongly, and they're adding to the wrong archive of lies and lying motivated by racism against Meghan Markle. And they've got a again misleading claim in the heading: lifelines extended for freelancers and furlough workers. That is not the full truth about the measures that the finance minister announced yesterday in his budget. And there, in this heading, about Nicola Sturgeon saying the conspiracy claims against her made by Salmond or his supporters, these are absurd. And here is a shocking item in the racist Fleet Street Times newspaper, which says that forgotten ethnic minority composers are to get a fair hearing on Radio 3. And it's the media correspondent Matthew Moore saying that Radio 3 is taking steps to diversify the classical canon by pledging to broadcast unfairly forgotten composers from ethnic minority backgrounds. African American and Scottish Jewish are the two groups that are mentioned. So these are mainly African Americans and Jewish kind of composers, not really ethnic minority. The Jewish population in the West are not treated as ethnic minority in the overall context of the racist status quo. And here is another rare piece of news. Lawyer's chief quits over lying in court. That is a solicitor who is named as David Green, prominent city lawyer, announced yesterday that he had deceived, or he has decided to step aside less than halfway through his one-year term as president of the Law Society after the High Court ruled that allegations of dishonesty must be heard by a disciplinary tribunal. And then it says the Green has led the 160,000 strong association in England and Wales since October. His early departure clears the way for the organization to have its first president from an ethnic minority background. Stephanie Boyce, who is black, will take over on March the 19th when Green leaves his post at the Society's headquarters in Chancery Lane, London. And it goes on about the dispute that Green has been involved in or embroiled in with a former client called David Davis for the last 10 years. Now, our comment is that is very rare. In fact, there is hardly any news about any licensed law trader being held to account for their lying and the corruption, let alone for their racism. The main executive part of this law society, of course, is the Solicitors Regulation or Regulating Authority, SRA. Now, the SRA mainly defends and promotes and serves as the formal official denier on the part of the 160,000 members and others who are not necessarily members or categorized as current members but are de facto treated as if they were. That is to say, the Solicitors Regulation Authority and the Law Society itself, which has got two branches. One is the SRA and the other is the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal, SDT. Both are in existence in denial of liabilities and duties because none of the regulatory activities that are reported or publicly published reflect the actual reality of the lying day-to-day, 24/7 lying done by the perpetrators, licensed law trading solicitors. Same applies to the counterpart organization, the Bar Council and the 4 Inns of Court that actually issue licenses for perpetrators to operate as barristers. There is no evidence that either the barristers, so-called, or the solicitors, or the legal executives, which is the third most numerous kind of organization that has the license, its members have license to practice parts of the law. So none of these 3 outfits actually are accountable to the public, to the victims, and most certainly none of the outlets or platforms admit any kind of real, comparable, equal rights and entitlements to be served honestly, competently, without bias and in time by the licensed law trade. It's like the London Transport, let's say, which runs the buses and the underground tube and other kind of networks, which carry notices, specifically notices, warning the public, warning the passengers, warning the users against any assault on the staff of the transport system. There is nothing that is mentioned about the staff abusing their positions and assaulting or violating the rights of the passengers. So the passengers are the huge majority, millions. Similarly, the public who have to use the licensed law traders are numbered in the millions. And yet their rights and the serious impact, adverse impact that they are caused by the lying and the dishonesty and the bias and the racism of the licensed law traders, solicitors so-called and barristers so-called, and the members of the corrupt judiciary which are also members of the licensed law trading professional organizations. Their rights and their claims and the trauma and the distress and the losses they are caused and they endure and they suffer, these are not acknowledged at all by the licensing bodies like the Law Society, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, or the Four Insom Court, or the Bar Council so-called. So the Times, in its cover-up, so the reference to the matter of the allegations and the claims by David Davis against David Green only became relevant after the High Court ruled against the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal, ruling that the SDT or the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal was wrong to strike out the claim by David Davis against David Green. Now, there is no mention at all about the millions of people and the trillions of pounds worth of damages and losses caused by the corruption and the dishonesty of the licensed law traders every single year. So that report is not really a truthful or competent, let alone democratic report. And there is a news item here that the British general who is the first senior army officer to face a court-martial since 1815, is reported as having lied to keep hold of cash for private school. And there is another item which says that the British military, has Me Too movement, as 4,000 women speak out against sexual attacks in the army. And David Aranovich, in the Times, a communist, he says he's a former communist, but he's a Murdoch employee. And he's saying that Boris Johnson's double standards over the IRA. Now, this comes in the wake of the disclosure that Roy Greenslade, a former editor of the Daily Mirror, etc., has been a secret supporter of the IRA and the IRA's bombing campaign against England. And Ian Martin says that there is too much tax in Rishi Sunak's budget. And the Times editorial also says that Sunak is spending too much. And Max Hastings, who is known also as Hitler Hastings, because of his draconian behavior while he was editor for the Boris Club. While he was editor, Boris Johnson was an employee by the then Daily Telegraph, which is now the Daily Boris Club. And what Max Hastings is saying, that COVID is being abused. The COVID crisis is being abused to hide bad government by Boris Johnson. Effectively, that's what I would interpret as the heading. He's saying one of Winston Churchill's best figures of speech was that of the 3-inch pipe, discussing public supineness in the face of a surfeit of wartime horrors. He observed that human beings, like a water pipe in a culvert, can absorb only just so much. When a thunderstorm brings a torrent, the surplus flows over the top. So it is now. All manner of stuff is going on, both at home and abroad, to which thoughtful citizens should respond at least with concern, on some issues with anger. Yet we are so obsessed with the pandemic and with its impact upon our own lives that few of us think further. I write this in no spirit of priggish superiority because I am as thoroughly institutionalized as everybody else. Then he goes on, during the Great Plague of 1665, Samuel Pepys wrote ruefully of its consequence in making us more cruel to one another than if we are dogs. British people through the past year have behaved better than that. Almost everybody broods a lot about the anguish inflicted by school closures and the stresses upon the National Health Service and care home staff. We remain amazingly submissive, chiefly in contrast to the plight of the Londoners of Pepys' time, because Rishi Sunak's largesse preserves almost everyone from extreme hardship. But even yesterday's budget seems remote from our narrow window of reality. Like prisoners scratching daily marks on the walls of our cells, we are preoccupied with the date of our next vaccination, the prospect of seeing family, the opening of pubs and shops, and having a summer holiday, etc., etc. It's all about Boris Johnson dishonesty and failures. He says that Johnson's strategy seems to be working, of burying the economic pain of Brexit in that of COVID-19 and that of both in a flood tide of treasury largesse, such as this country has never witnessed even in two world wars. People like it. Nobody seems bothered by the distant cliff edge facing the public or facing the public finances, acknowledged yesterday by the Chancellor. We are preoccupied with the children restarting proper learning next week, and families may be getting to Cornwall in July. And it's in that spirit that he continues. The point of the Fleet Street papers is that they are as bad as Max Hastings is saying the ordinary public are. And because they are not concerned about accountability, Boris Johnson is getting away. So, what is the Financial Times saying? The Financial Times yesterday had a piece about the new kind of president in the USA. And his impact. Now, in today's Financial Times, let's see what they're saying in the editorial. Today's Financial Times, that is Thursday, the 4th of March, is of course about the budget. And this is saying the same thing as the opinion by Max Hitler Hastings about the priority being given, hiding the truth under the various COVID actions. And there is nothing in the Financial Times about democracy, about accountability, about the impact on the many of the budget, really, because it's all tinkering with the various interpretations and various aspects of the budget that does not, the tinkering that is, does not acknowledge the existence of the millions of people in hardship and in deprivation, and the millions being denied any accountability by the local councils. And the Daily Mail, Beaverbrook's legacy of poisonous lying. The Daily Express says that our recovery begins today. Who does it mean by our? And it says, that is what it says, our recovery begins today, but our doesn't include the many. And again, the claim on page 8 that 300,000 more home buyers could benefit from stamp duty holiday extension is a lie, because 300,000 is nothing. It's a very small number of people. as compared to the millions who are never going to be able to buy any home. And there is no explanation as to why this is so. And there is no explanation as to the lack of rights of the millions in this country. And the I newspaper says that this budget that was announced yesterday by Rishi Sunak is not himself. He is an extension of Boris Johnson cabal. But the I newspaper says that the taxes are the highest since the 1960s. And in the kind of summary, it says, Chancellor increases taxes to the highest level for 52 years to pay for Britain's recovery. The 1.3 million people dragged into tax system, with further 1 million caught by higher 40% rate. And the UK taxes likely to reach highest sustained level in history, claims leading Institute of Finance economist. Corporation tax to climb from 19% to 25% in 2023 with lower rate for small businesses. And the move will raise 50 billion over the next 5 years, with the extra 19 billion from stealth income tax. Unemployment forecast to be lower and growth higher as Britain emerges from pandemic. Recovery package for jobs, hospitality, high street, and culture sector questioned by Labour. Now that is the last item and the only reference to the Labour Party's so-called position. On the same page, front page, the I newspaper continues to be the extension of the narrative conducted by the Daily Mail, the Sun and the Express against Meghan Markle. And it says that Palace to look into reports that Meghan bullied staff. Well, at least this one has got the quotation marks, look into. And also the additional qualifier reports that Meghan bullied staff. At least that is correct. But the point is that it is still running that narrative at the expense of and to the exclusion of the hundreds of thousands of stories of racism, racist discrimination, and of anti-poor people policies and practices, both by the police and elsewhere in society, and the lack of any accountability by the elected couriers of democratic mandates, so-called the local councils. And of course, things like the campaign for scrapping the elected mayor post are not recognized. And here is a piece that we accessed this morning, which says in Bengali, জনগণের ক্ষমতায়নে নির্বাহী মেয়র পদ্ধতি উত্তীর্ণ নয়. Now, who wrote this is not mentioned, but it is an absolutely stupid, idiotic statement. জনগণের ক্ষমতায়নে. Not a single person in Brick Lane or in Whitechapel from the community that is being addressed in that will understand ক্ষমতায়নে. It is based on a Google translation or similar exercised of an original script, most certainly written by somebody who is not a member of the community or is remote from the community, and it was written in English and they translated it. That's not how people speak. Bangla is the word that people understand immediately. Like Khoodeelaar, Bangilar, Horailar. These are the words that should be used, and this is the terminology that is alien to the writers of the script that are now doing the thing, because we emphasized and named Abbasuddin alias Halal yesterday in the broadcast, saying that he was one of the main saboteurs of the campaign against an elected mayor in 2010, and that he has been continuing to operate his agenda, that one day he will become the Labour Party nominee for mayor of elected mayor post. There is a so-called campaign also ongoing in Newham. Newham is next door to Tower Hamlets in London. And the campaign supposedly is to get rid of the elected post of mayor in Newham as well. But there is no publicly kind of registered sign that there is an active campaign going on. Why an active campaign must be going on or is necessary to be run in Newham is as validly relevant to both Tower Hamlets and in Newham. The in Newham, there is a campaign, or there is supposed to be a campaign to get rid of the elected mayor post. But in the public, on the accessible kind of public platforms, there is no evidence that such a campaign is actually going on. One thing about the COVID thing is that it restricts, clearly because of the lockdown, it restricts the kind of contacts between people, among people. There is no door-to-door kind of campaign possible or allowed or advisable. And the same thing applies to even street-level contacts. So almost all the main campaign or communications are supposedly taking place remotely and via the kind of text messages or the what is called the likes of the WhatsApp. Now, I said that this Bengali language kind of short statement that we access today, Thursday, the 4th of March 2021, is the most idiotic, stupid kind of text or statement. Because as a linguist, I can confirm that this word uttirno will need a translation into Siloti in the case of 99% of the Siloti speakers. Uttirno is not part of the vocabulary even of ordinary Bengali speakers. And Bengali speakers are not the linguistic community that are being addressed here in the campaign, because the UK Bangladeshis' first language and the main language is Siloti. And Uttirno is not a word or concept that would be understood by the absolute majority of the Bangladeshis in the UK. And Uttirno is not even part of the ordinary vocabulary of the speakers of Bengali, let's say. Uttirno is based on Sanskrit. And it's almost certainly a Tatshamo word. If not a Tadbhava word. And the same applies to Komatayone. So the stupidity has got two kind of effects in there. First of all, it has the appearance of being a part of the campaign, but substantially it is not. It's a trick. So it's a contradictory kind of post. It is giving the impression that there is a campaign. In fact, it is undermining the impact of any message in support of the call for scrapping the post of elected mayor. And as I said yesterday, the most recent circulation by Abbasuddin Elias Halal about the matter of the scrapping of the elected post of mayor was detected in the middle of last year, when Abbasuddin Halal said or sent a text or had a communication sent around to a limited number of people saying that John Biggs should be replaced by someone else as the candidate for the Labour Party. Now that is not opposing the post of mayor, is it? And that is certainly in all the context of all the facts suggesting that Lutfuram, John Biggs's replacement as the candidate for the Labour Party should be Abbasuddin Elias Halal. So I see the evidence, the presence of Abbasuddin Halal's agenda in that particular circulated bit. জনগণের ক্ষমতায়নে নির্বাহী মেয়র পদ্ধতি উত্তীর্ণ নয়. Even paddhati is an idiotic word and it's completely unoriginal. So we shall be ending this part A, at around 10:32 hours GMT on Thursday, the 4th of March 2021. We shall continue about Roxana Fia's in Newham and also update on the campaign to have justice for these children, including Shamima Begum, against the betrayal of their rights and entitlements done by Tower Hamlets Council